The Marvel Cinematic Universe has pulled off something amazing. They managed to take 23 films helmed by 17 different directors and somehow morph it into one cohesive story/universe. Well, somewhat cohesive.
I'm sure you did your best.
So here are the 5 biggest plot holes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Before we jump into it, hit subscribe and turn on your notifications.
Is it too much to ask for both?
Please. Also, warning of MCU spoilers ahead, so, don't yell at me, that should really go without saying. Number 5, where the hell are the Avengers? There's been a few instances where this universe really could have used the help of the Avengers and they were MIA.
I'm sorry.
Like, for example, Thor: The Dark World. While Malekith was in London trying to cast darkness upon the whole galaxy for eternity. I don't know what they were so busy with. Maybe they're just kind of night owls and didn't really mind. But my favorite example of this selective heroism involves Ego the Living Planet. So, in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Kurt Russell's like, oh I killed your mom because of my expansion.
I know that sounds bad.
Big villain. And he planted one of his ego seeds in Missouri. We witnessed the thing start to expand. There's cameras out. Everyone can see it. Mass panic. So, where are the Avengers at? What are they up to? The franchise, unlike many of their other plot holes, made no effort whatsoever to fill the damn thing. Bumpy.
I'm always picking up after you boys.
It could have been referenced in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the very least. I guess we just have to assume that the Avengers don't care about Missouri. I mean, who does?
I'm from Missouri.
Yeah, that's on Earth, dipshit.
I'm kidding, CinemaBlend is based in Missouri and it's a fantastic place. Number 4, Thanos just gives away the Mind Stone. So, Thanos is all about them Infinity Stones. Like, this dude loves him some stones.
I'm gonna enjoy it. Very, very much.
So why is it that in Joss Whedon's first Avengers film, we see that Loki is wielding the damn thing in a scepter? It's Loki, dude. Like, Thanos didn't know Loki's nature?
I'm a trickster. Yes, so mischievous.
The kid has a reputation. The scepter enabled Loki to control people's minds. So Thanos just gives it to him in order to help him take over Earth, essentially, and retrieve the Tesseract, which contained the Space Stone. It's like he gave up one stone in order to retrieve another, which is just a really sincerely bad investment. I mean, it would make sense, but by now we know that Thanos was already neck deep in his quest for the stones. And we know how Thanos and Loki's relationship ended, so that kind of confirms that it was a super risky move. Well, here's why that went down. It doesn't even come out that it was the Mind Stone inside the scepter until Avengers Age of Ultron. Because apparently when the original Avengers came out, that wasn't the plan. Including this tidbit was in an effort to connect these individual plot threads to Thanos, thus paving the way for the climax of the Infinity Saga overall. This was admitted by Infinity War and Endgame writers Stephen Marcus and Christopher McFeely. So, the dudes that were responsible for making sense of this whole thing are owning the plot hole itself. And I mean, in all fairness, you could argue that maybe Thanos was just like super careless back then, but again, here he is getting the Power Stone in Infinity War. This guy loves stones. Just loves these stones.
Tell me his name again.
Thanos.
You really think he's about to give one of those suckers up? No way.
I am inevitable.
Number 3, GAMORA is the last of her kind, until she's not. During the lineup scene in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, we see quite clearly that GAMORA is listed as the last surviving member of the Zehoberei people, and that she is the adopted daughter of the Mad Titan Thanos, but that part holds up, just hear me out. When we delve into GAMORA's origins in Infinity War, we see that Thanos is in the process of wiping out 50% of the population of her home planet. That's like his jam, in case you don't remember.
Perfectly balanced. This whole thing should be.
So, she is not the last of her people, not at all. 50% of them are left. This is further confirmed in Infinity War when Thanos says this.
You know what's happened since then? The children born have known nothing but full bellies and clear skies. It's a paradise.
I mean, that may not be totally true because half of them were murdered, but she's not arguing the fact that 50% of them were still left.
You murdered half the planet.
So, why was Nova Corps so ill-informed? They weren't. In 2014, when the first Guardians of the Galaxy was released, Thanos' plans and origins weren't quite fleshed out.
This might not be the best idea.
And Gamora's arc is dope, so this wasn't a bad move by any means. It's just that when you're connecting over a decade's worth of films and your main villain's motives aren't quite conceptualized until later on, these things happen.
Another!
Fine, my dude, calm down. Number 2, Iron Man comes out of retirement. At the end of Iron Man 3, Tony Stark blows up all of his Iron Man suits. He also chucks his surgically removed arc reactor into the ocean. A little dramatic, if you ask me. Anyway, cut to Avengers Age of Ultron, and he's suddenly back in action?
Did you forget?
Age of Ultron is a pivotal film for the franchise as a whole. As I mentioned earlier, it's when we find out that Loki was in possession of the Mind Stone. We're also introduced to Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and it's the first time we meet Paul Bettany's Vision. So they were clearly starting to set some stuff up. And it just made more sense for Tony to be thrown back into the action. Jon Favreau directed the first 2 Iron Man films. Shane Black helmed the third. There's a lot of differences between them, and some of these continuity errors are kind of inevitable. Also, they did make mention of his return to the nonsense in Captain America Civil War, but clearly this was simply an effort to fill in that plot hole, and the effort itself was kind of half-assed. A little bumpy, I mean. I like to think he just changed his mind rather fast and then felt quite silly. Like I said, little dramatic. Tony. And finally, we come to number 1, Spider-Man Homecoming's timeline. So, the reason that this one is so particularly unforgivable to me is that they were so damn specific. After the events of the first Avengers, Adrian Toomes is working a salvage job in order to collect the alien shit left behind by the Chitauri. That way he can, you know, make dope weapons with their technology and whatever. After his operation is shut down, we get a title card that clearly says 8 years later. This places the events of Spider-Man Homecoming 8 years after the events of the original Avengers. But that doesn't make sense. This would mean that in the MCU timeline, Homecoming comes after Infinity War, which we know is impossible because of, well, everything.
What's our timeline?
Tom Holland's Peter Parker had a very well-established rapport with Tony Stark by the time Infinity War came around. Anyway, Marvel has since admitted that this was just another continuity mistake. Infinity Saga director Joe Russo even called it, quote, a very incorrect 8 years. No biggie. Honestly, like, thanks for owning up to it. They even did some more road work to smooth out the bump with this line from Infinity War.
Thanos has been inside my head for 6 years, since he sent an army to New York, and now he's back.
So that's it, man. The 5 biggest MCU plot holes. Now look, I'm not claiming at all that these are bad movies. After all, I've seen all of them, like, multiple times. Mistakes will be made in a universe this complicated. And in my opinion, it doesn't really take from the story as a whole. But what do you think? Is the ride too bumpy for you to look past these errors, or did Kevin Feige and company do a better job than anyone else in Hollywood could have? Also, if you have a favorite plot hole that I didn't mention, tell us about it in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.